Whether you're watching TV or playing with friends at the beach, it's one of those sports that grabs your attention. But did you ever notice that men's and women's volleyball are almost like two different games? It's not just about the athletes playing it. The styles, the strategies, and even the audience are pretty different. So what exactly sets them apart? Why does women's volleyball often draw bigger crowds than men's? First things first, we've got to talk about the physical differences. I know you've probably heard this before, but when it comes to volleyball, these differences are a big deal. They change everything from how the ball is hit to the way teams set up the defense to how long each rally lasts. Men tend to be taller and stronger. You've got dudes over 6'6" who have verticals nearing 30 to 35 inches and smacking the ball at speeds faster than most people drive. Seriously, some spikes clocking at over 112 kilometers an hour. That's no joke. On the flip side, women tend to rely more on finesse and precision. Well, because they're not trying to launch the ball into orbit, hence their net being a little lower. So instead of 7.11 feet high, it's standing at 7.04. But now you're asking, if men put on such a show, why do women's games always pull a bigger crowd? Let's talk about strategy first, because this is where the real difference starts to show. In men's volleyball, the strategy is simple. Hit hard, hit fast, and finish the point as quickly as possible. It's all about power. The guys rely heavily on their outside and opposite hitters to get the ball down before the defense of the opposing team has time to set up. You'll see these fast-paced sets where the ball barely has time to leave the setter's hands before it's being hammered to the floor. It's almost like a race. The team that can set up their spike the fastest usually wins the point. But in women's volleyball, it's a different story. Here, the name of the game is precision. The rallies are longer, so teams have to be more patient and smarter about their shot selection. Instead of just swinging for the fences every time, women's players will use tips, roll shots, and even softer hits to try and outsmart the blockers. Now, am I saying that men don't do tips and all of the above? No. What I'm saying is their goal is different. If the defense is already there and has the hitter on lock, yes, the spiker would tip, roll shot, etc. It's much more difficult to anticipate things in men's volleyball because the ball is always going back and forth at an extremely fast pace. To put into perspective, the average rally for men is 5 to 7 seconds, but for women it's 7.25 seconds. That might not seem like a much, but that 2-second difference can easily be the difference between being there before the ball hits the ground or being half a second late. But since women get those 2 extra seconds, they also get the opportunity to anticipate. Hence, they're running these types of plays more often. And you know what's interesting? In women's volleyball, teamwork shines more. The coordination between players, how they cover the court, how they communicate to set up plays, how they defend as a unit is on full display because of the longer rallies. It's a game of cat and mouse, where each team is constantly trying to outthink the other, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Defense in volleyball is where things get really exciting, especially when you see the contrast between the men's and women's games. In men's volleyball, defense is mostly about speed and quick reactions. With the ball flying at ridiculous velocities, defenders don't have much time to plan or set up. It's all about reflexes and instinct. The blockers in this scenario are critical, and their job is often to try and shut down the spike before it even gets past them. These blockers are huge, by the way, and when they jump, it's like a wall going up in front of the net. But even with those big blocks, a lot of balls get past anyway. That's when the back row players have to rely on pure reaction time to dig those spikes and keep the play alive. Now, women's volleyball offers something different. Since the ball, as mentioned many times before, does not get hit as hard, defenders have a bit more time to see the play develop and get into position. The coordination in between blockers and back row players is crucial. They work together, with blockers trying to funnel the ball into certain areas where the defenders are already waiting. It's like a chess match, where each team is constantly trying to outmaneuver the other. Now you're going to say, "Oh, but the guys also do that." Yes, but more often than not, it doesn't matter, because either the ball hits the floor way closer to the net than anticipated, or it's just too hard to put it back up for the setter to be able to pull off a good set. In sports, men's matches usually attract bigger crowds, like basketball, soccer, American football, wrestling, hockey, but for a select few, this isn't the case, especially when we are talking about volleyball. Key matches for international women's volleyball averages around 500,000 to 1 million viewers, whereas compared to its male counterpart, it only averages at around 200k to 500,000. Let's break it down. First off, it's all about the rallies. In women's volleyball, the points last longer, which means fans have more time to get into each play. Those back and forth exchanges keep the excitement building, and by the time the point is finally won, the energy in the crowd is electric. You don't get that same build-up with the men's games, because the points are over too quickly. To put it simply, suspense is key. Another reason for the bigger crowds is college sports culture. Especially in the US, women's volleyball has deep roots in college athletics. Schools have been supporting women's volleyball for decades, and that tradition has built a strong, loyal fan base. And let's be real, college volleyball is huge. Students, alumni, and local fans pack the stands, and when the team is good, it creates this buzz that spreads through campus like a wildfire. Plus, the NCAA really puts women's volleyball front and center. From the regular season to the NCAA tournament, women's volleyball gets a ton of primetime coverage, especially during championship season. And that visibility helps grow the audience even more. And last but not least, women's volleyball has done an incredible job of marketing its stars. You've got players like Carrie Walsh-Jennings and Misty May-Trenner who've become household names. These athletes aren't just known for their skills on the court, they are icons who've helped push the sport into the mainstream. Now, even though men's and women's volleyball are different in a lot of ways, those differences are starting to narrow. Both games are evolving. Thanks to advances in sports science and better training programs, women's volleyball is getting faster and more powerful. You're seeing female players like Melissa Vargas with insane verticals and explosive power. They are hitting harder, jumping higher, and closing the gap with the men's game in terms of physicality. At the same time, men's volleyball is starting to incorporate more finesse into its gameplay. You'll see more and more guys tipping the ball, going for roll shots, and using smart plays to outmaneuver the defense. Things that weren't as common in men's volleyball a decade ago. This evolution is making volleyball as a whole more exciting than ever. Both versions of the game are taking the best elements from each other and blending them together. It's an awesome time to be a volleyball fan.